Coming into the third game after an even score, we're going right into it. TF Ash Lucian, Camille Renekton Leona. Lucian on blue side. Shaking my head. TF Ash. TF, yeah, not only is it very powerful, but also in hands of Showmaker, a very potent pick. Ash again taken away from Ghost, Camille Renekton, obviously against Bin. Not really sure about these random bands, Silas, Renekton, but it seems to work out, I guess. Also, these banning these comfortable picks certainly limits the enemy. Leona banned, so well, they certainly feared Sword Art's performance on it. We see though, Nidalee is open, so it has to be picked, right? Very strong champion here. The response on the other side, Jhin Syndra. First of all, Jhin Syndra very powerful. Second of all, very potent picks for Suning, right? One Fang and Angel, multiple times they showed high proficiency on these champions. Then you might wonder, okay, jungle's pick, then we answer jungler, right? But jungle is also picked, so jungle pick is not in any jeopardy, right? Graves will not be picked away. So we can pick Jhin Syndra here, getting these two powerful picks, and then later pick up the Graves. So very clever here, not doing any rookie mistakes or silly mistakes, right? On the other side, Akali Jax. So Bin, after Camille being banned, Renekton being banned, now he gets one of his more known picks, the Jax, on which he had many great games so far. Akali against Syndra, yeah, it's not that great. Till 6, Akali will be completely dumpstered into the turret, has to beg for CS and so on. But after that, yeah, quite strong champion. Also Syndra and Jhin immobile. Akali loves immobile targets. Similar story with Jax, to be honest. Both of them are very slippery, and with items and with time they get very powerful here. Combine that with Nidalee, yes, double AP, but Nidalee Jax, very powerful, and then Nidalee also maybe able to get a bit more pressure for Akali, which is certainly not the way to play, but well, if Akali can get a better laning phase, it's certainly helpful. Lastly, we see obviously the Graves. He has to come now, otherwise he would get banned, obviously, and then yeah, that would really hurt down one's jungle position, right? Getting an B-tier jungler or something like that. And maybe people are wondering about Lilia. So first of all, Lilia's greatest power is in the later stages because she scales very good. In the early stages, individually in the 1v1 or any 2v2 scenario, she's not offering as much as a Grace or a Nidalee or maybe even a Kindred in the terms of damage or other abilities here. Her farm speed is very strong, but she can't really do much with this farm abilities, right? Also champions like Karthus farm very fast, but Karthus also needs to be hidden, right? Certainly your team can play around it, but why do this extra work, or why take this heavy burden on yourself? This is not very smart, and also Lilia is not very an enabler of herself, right? Overall, she's very situational, and most of her power came through these level 1 cheeses and getting raptor invades, but now everyone knows about it, so everyone is prepared and everyone plays correctly around it, or should be able to do it. So it makes little sense at the moment to pick her up just blindly in these very skillful matchups, right? It's not a first league team playing against some bronze team, it's like the World Championship Finals. The enemy certainly knows how to play around Lilia at the moment. So yeah, they have to pick Graves up. Also, Graves Syndra. I talked multiple hours on this channel about how this combination is very powerful at the moment. And it's maybe not the S+ combination, but it's certainly up there. So, going over the bans, Thresh Bard, Lulu Pantheon. So one shall not pick S or A tier supports, simply put. Also the Lulu obviously affects for down 1 into the top lane position, and well, I'm not really certain about Lulu Jax. Like obviously Lulu will bully him, but Lulu is also very squishy, so a Jax Q, W and combined with an E in Flash, he certainly can blow up Lulu quite easily. So yeah, not really a fan of the Lulu in this scenario, because also Lulu is a support, so she scales quite nicely till she caps out with her items faster than anyone else. But the Jax also scales very well, and I for once think Jax scales way better. Especially because Lulu is a setup champion for AD carries mostly, and AD carries are not really like what's so great at the moment. Yeah, like leave out AD carry junglers better. So yeah, Pantheon, Thresh, Ward. I already said like no S tier supports here. With both teams banning supports, both teams haven't legged supports here. They will get some creative support picks here. Then we see Kennen. Also not a fan of this one, but here we have to talk about the player. Same story with Jax. Nagri, like, probably the best Kennen player there is. The enemy team also has some quite a decent amount of squishy champions. Also they don't have much CC. So Kennen actually should be able to reliably do a ton of damage here. Thing is, Kennen and Syndra mercs, like this diminishes both of their value because the enemy team is further intensifies to buy Mercury traps. So this is certainly an issue that could come up. Next rotation, Ezreal Alistar. So the Alistar is a pick away from Daryl, who is like a very prominent Alistar player, and yeah, back then for Sword Art a few years back, it's also a great pick for him personally. And it's also potentially good into Kennen, right? Before the stun comes in, Alistar could combo Kennen or just knock him back. Ezreal completely fine into Jhin in any way, and also might be able to avoid the damage coming in. Braum then lastly can catch some of the skill shot, but he's more important for the slows overall. Diminishing the kite ability and slipperiness are already mentioned for champions like Nidalee or Akali. So this rounds up in the pick phase. In the laning phase and like in the overall game phase, down 1 should get leads nearly everywhere but the jungle, because like Nidalee is one of the fastest clearing junglers, but Graves is not too far behind. Suning picking weak lanes is actually quite problematic, and they just completely surrender the early game, like everything pre-12 minutes, right? Because 12 minutes is sort of timing for the first item usually. Angel can do something in mid lane with level 6, but remember, duo AP is not that great. Mercs for Syndra, right? And Mercs in general for Suning's side are great value. Remember, I mentioned the CC from Kennen, Braum. It's just very good. And also the heavy AP damage. So that's certainly something Suning players have to look into and pick them up when needed. So with the leads, down 1 should be able to establish in these early minutes. The Drakes should go to their side and they should establish a firm control pre-20 minutes in general, right? Get the early leads and then snowball them in greater CS leads, XP leads, vision leads, and so on. Suning does, though, have a very strong 2-item power spike, which could in turn turn around this potential gold lead, right? The gold lead down 1 should have, and with the stat efficiency from these 2-item power spikes, Suning needs to use it correctly, right? I mentioned down 1 should get the Drakes, so Suning should fight around the 3rd or 4th Drake, depending again on how fast down 1 is taking these. And with these power spikes, Suning needs to get the Drake to stop the soul stacking, and obviously they need to get the gold to come back into the game, because if you look at them in 5v5 fights, it's not looking too bad. But, well, getting this later. As I said, this, like, if the game goes longer on even ground, Down 1 has certainly some problems. Look at the team comp, look at it again. They have no engage but cannon. Then yes, some long range pick from Syndra and Jhin, but this is not really reliable, right? You need vision pockets, and you don't want to have Syndra and Jhin as your first tier engage. Additionally, Suning with their hyper mobile champions can do much in different ways. They can certainly look for picks, they can certainly use vision pockets and team fights to catch members of guard. They have very many abilities here. In turn, these hyper mobile champions are also very squishy. And then we're coming back to the top lane, Nuguri. So Nuguri is everything here. If the cow is not able to push him back, he is everything here. So either he kills all of Suning or he does so much damage that their mobility is much better. Or even if he just goes in, right? His ultimate creates so much space, which is actually very much needed if you're looking at down one's other champions, right? They have no ability to create space for themselves. They need Nuguri to be in the fight to use his ultimate. Nuguri without ultimate, Nuguri not in the fight, down one has little abilities, if any. They have no means to fight, right? On what legs are their champions standing? They have no, they can't just stand there and throw abilities at them. The champions from Suning dodge them, they just ignore them, they're just running at them. Yes, people often criticize, yeah, you can't just run at the opponent, but it's not just running at them. Running at them creates the pressure, and it diminishes the ability for down one to use their abilities, right? Jhin has cast animations, right? He can't just run away and cast abilities. Also with his long attack wind up. For him, kiting is very difficult. Also Syndra, she needs to establish her balls and then shove them around. If she's just running away, yes, she can do that once, maybe she gets a lucky pick here and there, but it's very hard and it's not the way these champions want to operate. They need something in front of them to enable them to use their abilities, to enable their damage. And Nuguri is certainly not a tank in this game here, but the space his ultimate creates and the pressure he draws, or the attention, I'm not fitting here. This is what enables down one's damage. If this isn't there, down one, no ability in teamfights. Absolutely none. So down one is very much reliant on the engage of the top laner. And yeah, remember, cannon is not a tank. So, on the other side, this actually enables split push in this case. Right? It's not a scenario where cannon goes Varmok's armor and just does the strategy of tanking the wave, tanking the damage before the turret is able to be attacked, moves back into Fog of War, regens, and does that again and again, right? It's not an on, or a Scion, whatever. It's a cannon. If Bin on Jax, he can go through side lane. He can just kill the cannon. The cannon does nothing against the 4-item Jax. Cannon can't shred the waves. He can use ult once, but then that's it. Also, as I explained, cannon is the vitalist piece of down one's comp. So if he is answering Jax, then what's down one doing? Down one is doing nothing. So either down one does nothing and lose, or Nuguri would have to go with his team, and Jax is unanswered. And then, so what? So down one can just 5-man run at Suning. Suning's 4 people there, while Jax tries to split push. And that's not really how it goes. So look at their champions. Ezreal, Alistar, they're very hard to dive, they're very hard to get onto. And then also there's a Nidalee and then Akali. Yes, it's a bit more difficult for an Akali to play backwards, but Nidalee certainly is able to do that with a more supportive item build, which certainly is fitting here, right? As I said before, Suning should not be that far ahead. They shouldn't be ahead at all, they should be behind in the early stages, so Nidalee should go for a more defensive style. Either a Glacial Augment style maybe here, with slow items, or a more supportive one with Athenes. Yeah, these are 2 options. Because this is not this is not something that is reliant on anything in-game, right? I'm doing this analysis just based on the draft, right? We can predict how these champions interact with each other, how the game state should be in certain time periods. Obviously, there's always the X factor of the play, always misplay, always outplay. So this is not 100% true, but that's not how you conduct research. That's not how you plan games. You plan games from what should happen, from what could happen. It's kind of interesting, right? You should remember what could happen. So, like, what happens when Suning gets ahead early? Well, that's certainly interesting and a nice mind game or a mind experiment, but that's not really relevant because in most cases Suning will not get ahead early. They will lose Drakes, they will lose CS. Like, Akali is not winning mid lane against Syndra. Like, she's not killing her pre-6. So thinking about this stuff is not really relevant. This is one of the only cases how this game could play out. So Nidalee can just sort out her itemization and they can just notice, okay, there's no way down one can just run at us. Jax is nearly unanswered and a team on this level should be able to play split push. Yeah, maybe you lose a Baron. So what? Like, split push is still viable, especially in these scenarios, right? If there's an Ornn, no. But against the cannon, certainly. And especially here, look at down one's comp. I already talked about it in minutes and minutes. Down one needs cannon by their side. So if he's not there, this is GG for them. So yeah, this is not like theoretical. This is how it should be, right? Which is certainly theoretically, because it's not like the reality, but it's like an analysis that is based in the reality of their champions. As such, if the result we see in the game does not reflect this, so either my analysis is completely wrong, or, well, most certainly, which is more practical, there's just some misunderstandings of how these champions work, right? Which in total this rant means to say that if the game turns out differently, this is much based on the X factors. If the game starts to turn out the way I predict, which is the way these champions interact, it's not a wonder. It's not by chance. It's not by chance that Syndra dominates Akali. It's just how this champion matchup works. And by these facts, adding them up, and then seeing how the game develops on these facts, right? Looking into the item power spikes, looking into the drakes that might come up, or the drake's timing, we can actually predict how this game could go from the very start of this draft. This is exactly what I did. And these players can do the same. So I'm not really understanding of these players who then, well, like, fail to do what they need to do, right? So if in this game, like this is spoiler warning to some extent, like the Suning goes for team fights here. They are not split pushing with the Jax. Certainly Jax is one of the split pushers, I already mentioned that in the video prior to this, that he's able to teamfight. But there's no answer in the side lane. It makes no sense to teamfight 24/7. Yes, you have Akali, yes, you have like Nidalee. Certainly, with an Alistair as well, you have actually abilities to teamfight. And as I mentioned before, down one is mostly reliant on cannon. But in teamfights they actually have a chance. If you spread the map, right? Akali from Fog of War, or Jax in the side lane, down one has little means to counteract this. So yeah. In the game we also see these two Omni Stones. So for Jax, we have seen this I think once before, which is quite good for skirmishes. It's not reliable in lane, and it's not good for late game teamfighting. So it's again not really what you're looking for. So in laning phase, Cannon against Jax, it goes so-so. So Cannon actually can pressure him or harass him with auto attacks, but he has to be very careful and can't really do it how he does it usually, because Jax can just QE and then chunk Ken for half his HP. Especially when he like rolls in Electrocute or what else, maybe in what is it? Dark Harvest, he can chunk him very hard in the early game. But Cannon should still be able to control the wave for most part here. So taking a rune that is more focused on the early stage is not really like really thinking what you're doing here. You're not playing to your strengths, you're not playing to what you drafted. And these runes come in after the draft happened, obviously, right? Similar story with Nidalee here. So she's going for Omnistone. This is very questionable for all junglers, right? For Nidalee, she has multiple good runes, and like in some cases with Omnistone, she can't even get rid of the bad ones. If she rolls a bad rune, she's a jungler. She can't just proc it against the laner. So that's very strange. Additionally, like for example, an Ahri. Like I'm not saying Ahri is the correct pick here, but that's just an example. Ahri would support more the supportive style of Nidalee, which she could have really gone into in this game. Like they have enough damage. Like Akali is just a great amount of AP damage, and even with Athenes, Nidalee is actually doing quite a lot of damage in the early stages here. Especially against a Graves, for example, who has very little magic resistance. Suning, I think they like failed to see how they could win the game in an easier fashion than going through team fights where down one has a chance. And then these rune choices, they reflect that. So yeah, I think in this game we saw the begin of a bit of the decay of Suning. Like we could argue that stuff like what we saw in game 2 with the Rengar and tank Rengar going for more of this chaos and then disrupt the game flow and so on. Maybe this is something they were looking here. But still, it's not playing to your strengths. It's not playing to potential win conditions. And as such, they actually lost the game. Well, duh, right? We saw this many times at Worlds. We see this many times everywhere. If you're not playing to your strengths, that's very hard. And then if you're playing to the enemy's only like win condition, like it gets even harder. It gets impossible. So yeah, this marks the end of game 3. See you in the next one, game 4.